Hello, everyone. Welcome to CyVerse's webinar series. I'm Tina Lee, CyVerse's User Engagement Officer. We are pleased today to host a webinar by Edwin Skidmore, CyVerse's Director of Cyber Infrastructure, and he's going to present on CyVerse's cloud-native platform, CACAO. CACAO stands for Continuous Automation, Continuous Analysis, and Orchestration. So that's a mouthful, and that's why we use CACAO. And it is our current cloud computing platform. Let's first take care of some light housekeeping, and then Edwin will take over. First, a reminder that our next webinar, the final one for 2023, will be on December 1st and features U of A's Carlos Zaraga of the Data Science Institute, who will lead us on a short tour of where applied earth and environmental sciences are headed today and are heading in the future. Today's webinar on CACAO is about 30 minutes long. We'll have time for your questions at the end. So please open your Zoom chat window, type your questions there for Edwin to address. As always, we record the webinars, and I'll post the video recording and Edwin's slides on our website. In a little bit, I'll post the link to our past webinars where you can find the recordings and slide presentations for previous webinars. And now I am pleased to introduce Edwin Skidmore, my colleague at CyVerse. Way back in 2010, Edwin's team introduced CyVerse's first cloud compute resource called Atmosphere, where CyVerse users could launch virtual machines with just a few clicks and enabling a whole generation of scientists to discover the benefits of working in the cloud. So today's webinar on CACAO presents the state of the art for automating and orchestrating your cloud native resources. Edwin has been with CyVerse since its inception in 2008 and now manages our cloud native team. Welcome, Edwin.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's webinar about CACAO and how to use templates. So today I'll primarily focus on the template side of CACAO, which is really the core way of doing things in compute and automation in CACAO. And then I'll give a demo on importing a couple templates and discuss future plans for CACAO. As Tina mentioned, CACAO stands for Cloud Automation and Continuous Analysis Orchestration. And we built CACAO based on CyVerse's 15 years of experience in helping researchers and scientists, science educators in using the cloud. Even in today's world, we hear from our user community that there is still complexity and high costs in using the cloud. And this is not just monetary cost, but the cost in learning and how to use it, and especially in using it for collaborative, data-driven team science. CACAO is a platform applying our lessons learned in container orchestration, multi-cloud, and automation. And this is one of my favorite quotes from a colleague and longtime user of CyVerse. Nate Miller is a plant biologist from UW-Madison. Because he is very passionate about providing his phenotyping tools for his community, he is needed to become a cloud engineer, a research software engineer, DevOps, system admin, all out of sheer need to integrate with different clouds. And he has admitted that his users don't care about the tools, where the tools are deployed, only that they can deploy his tool set, upload their data, retrieve the results. And this is one of the many use cases CACAO hopes to solve in providing users an easy access to doing work in the cloud. So CACAO is an open source multi-cloud software platform targeting researchers, educators, and research software professionals to help them manage their data-driven workflows, infrastructure, and even complex software stacks, with the primary goal of minimizing costs by leveraging cloud frameworks. So CACAO is cloud native with some of the technologies that you see on the right-hand side. And our goal is to expose these capabilities to users. So in essence, CACAO is a broker that simplifies access between users who might be cloud experts and create templates and users who might benefit and be productive with those templates. So as templates are published and shared within the CACAO platform, users can use these to customize their resources. CACAO is currently deployed in Jetstream2, and we have integration with AWS and Kubernetes. And the vision is that we can use CACAO to integrate with different types of clouds, whether it's Edge, Azure, Google Cloud, or any other types of clouds that may arise in the future. So you're probably asking, what are templates and why should we use them? And I think a really good analogy is recipes, namely food recipes. So this is one of my recipes that I've dug up from my my recipe book, if you will, that I've had for many decades. And so these are, this is the recipe types of recipes I'm talking about. So when it comes to cooking and baking, I think there are really three roles or three types of people in the world. Recipe producers. These are people who have really good talent in creating new recipes. Recipe reproducers or transformers, if you will. These are people who love to, recreate a recipe that someone else made or even modify them to their own liking. And then recipe feasters. So these are people who consume the products and really don't care about how it's made necessarily, but they really take joy in eating the products of a recipe. And so obviously these are not mutually exclusive. Someone could be a recipe feaster as well as a recipe producer. And though certainly some of us fall in more than one one category than another. So, and I think templates, CACAO templates are very similar. There are going to be people who are really good at creating templates, other people who can take a template and reproduce it and make their own variation. And then there are folks, probably a vast majority of researchers and educators who really can take advantage of these templates and customize it once they're made available. And CACAO, in essence, will be that bridge, or strives to be that bridge to connect creators and producers of templates with people who can really take advantage of it. And so there are some other characteristics that are that we can draw upon from the recipe analogy. Recipes are shareable. When you put a lot of love and dedication to creating that perfect recipe, I think it's natural for us to share that and make that available for others to use. There's a sense of portability that if you create a recipe in one kitchen, you should be able to create it in another, assuming you have the right equipment. And then there's customization, right? So you can have one original recipe that was developed by someone, but someone takes it and makes it their own, maybe swapping out ingredients, maybe adding to it, new ingredients or putting it into another recipe. So generally speaking, cloud templates have similar properties. But to go into more of the anatomy of recipes and why it's a good analogy is obviously recipes have a name. They have purpose and yield. They create something and it creates a certain quantity. It has ingredients. And then, of course, the important part, which is the instructions. And so, recipes also have a lot of other metadata that may be associated with it. Obviously, who created it? What are its dependencies? Like if you're making tiramisu, for example, you might need ladyfingers, and then there might be further instructions about creating that. But I think the important part is that as recipes grow over time, there's that sense of customizing and scaling up your recipe to suit your needs. Other things that may not be carried forward or captured in metadata of a recipe is like, how did you get to that delicious recipe? Where did you borrow the idea from? Or how much time you spent in customizing it? And of course, the blood, sweat, tears, accidents, mishaps, and lessons learned. And as you can see here, I had a few accidents on this recipe. So templates, of course, are very similar, especially within CACAO. Every template will have a purpose. It has ingredients, as in like what cloud and what template framework you might be using. And then for users that use templates, there's always going to be, generally speaking, some sense of customization and scaling that that the template creator designed for a template. So the templates themselves come from different types. For example, they could be infrastructure as code templates like Terraform, could be declarative like Kubernetes, or even very domain specific like Nextflow. They can target different clouds. And again, CACAO strives to help be that bridge between different clouds and different templates. CACAO is also an open platform in many ways, but one of the ways is that it doesn't try to pick a horse in which template or cloud it should focus on. The architecture is such that adding additional clouds and templates can be added if we get the community request for it. So I'd like to dig a little deeper into the template metadata. Templates are stored, CACAO templates should be stored in Git or any Git repo, whether it's GitHub or GitLab or your own private repo. And currently, the only thing that CACAO requires is a .cacao folder, which will contain a couple metadata files. One of them is the metadata JSON, and that contains information about who created it, a description about it, and also contains semantic information. For example, like what cloud and what language is the template created in. And then it has configurable parameters that the author scoped out for the template. So things like, what's the username that should be created on the VM, if it's a VM type of template, or adjusting the size, etc. And I provided a link to more information here, and I can make that available after the webinar as well. And then another metadata file that's important is the UI.json file. And that describes the layout in, when you create create resources from a template, there is a wizard that is generated so that a user can click through and configure items on that wizard. And so the UI.json will help define the layout. You can define labels for the different parameters and declare the data types and even create a help text for it. So as part of the demo, and I'll go into these more in the demo, is that to import templates into CACAO, you currently need to use the CACAO CLI, and these are the commands used to manage templates. In the future, of course, we will make that available through the UI. And so I'll go ahead and jump into the demo. So just on Windows. So this is CACAO, and I'll get into that in a second, but hold on 1 second. Okay. So I will be doing the demo from this repo, which is at github.com/cyber/cacao example templates. And you can, in this case, it's in GitHub, but it can be in it. Templates can come from any Git repo. So you're welcome to use this repo if you would like to experiment in integrating a template into CACAO. And for today, we will take a look at a couple repos. One is the Docker and the fast chat. And a typical process to import it or to copy from another repo is to fork it, which I've already done. And then, so I will go in and import, go through the process of importing a template. So again, the way you do it is through the CACAO CLI. So in here is, I have CACAO, and if you type CACAO, you will get the help. And then I've already created a branch for this branch. Yep, webinar. And I will go into, here's the OpenStack Docker. So currently we support Terraform templates. So if you're familiar with Terraform, the .tf files will look very familiar to you. We have an inputs file, a main file, and that's all you need. And again, with CACAO, all you need is two files, a metadata JSON that defines what parameters are used, amongst other things, and then a UI.json, which provides how it's laid out in the UI. So I've already logged in, and I can go and use the CACAO template command. So in the CACAO template, we have options for creating, deleting, getting, syncing, and updating. And the one to import will be create. So this is the command to create. It basically says I'm using get as the template source. Here's the URL. This is, oops. This is the name. This is the branch. I'm going to call it webinar. And then the path will be at Terraform OpenStack Docker, because that is the path in the repo, oops, that it's stored in. Terraform OpenStack Docker. And then when I do that, okay, it expired. 1 second, I have to log in. So I need to relog into the CACAO. Sorry about this. And there we go. So I have now just imported the template into CACAO, and I will show you what that looks like. So I just loaded, this is the template I just updated. It was called Webinar Docker. And now I can launch this template, and it just basically says, you know, whatever. And that launched the new template that I just created. So another template I'd like to show is an LLM. So if I go over here. So I have an example of importing an open source LLM called Fast Chat. This is located, this is the Git repo for it. And it basically launches a Fast Chat, an LLM. This particular LLM is Vacuda, and one of its goals was to be that closely resembles ChatGPT like 3.5 and 4. So it's nice because it's open source, and so in this particular deployment, it will launch a LLM controller. Oops, LLM controller is up here, and then an LLM worker. So you could actually distribute this on multiple nodes, but for today, we're just going to launch it on one VM. And then it will launch a web interface. So I'm going to go cd into, and then go ahead and deploy them. And again, I'll create it from a get source. This is the URL. That's the name. It's going to be called Webinar Fast Chat. The branch will be webinar, and that's the path to the folder within the repo. And then I'm going to copy this. So if I look on the website on CACAO, there's going to be a new webinar fast chat template. I can go to deployments, and I can see that it's very simply configured. I can give it a name, an image, and the size. Now, obviously, that's mildly useful. One of the benefits of fast chat is it supports creating multiple models. So what if I wanted to change the model so that it uses something else? I'll show you how to update the metadata and parameters. And I already created a script to copy over what's needed. So now, if I go to the main, I have created a new variable in Terraform. It says model, and then in the code, it'll actually put the right model into the place where it's installing. And then the important part is, like, in the metadata, I now provide the parameter, and in the UI.json, I also include the model here. So to sync, if you make changes to the metadata of your template, all you simply need to do is you just do cacao template sync and then the ID. And it will update it. So now if I go to cacao and I click add deployment and go to the fast chat. Oops, maybe I need to refresh. Oh, sorry. I need to check in the code. And then now it should reflect back. Oh, of course. Let me take a look. There's a model. Ah, of course.
Edwin, there's a note in chat from Mirav about syncing it.
Oh, I have to sync it afterwards. Thank you. I had done that, but it was before. Let's try this one more time. I might have copied the wrong. Oh yeah, I was using the wrong code. There we go. Okay, sorry, I was using the wrong code to sync. And that's always important. There we go. Okay, so it's important that you have the right ID. You can be sure that the code is checked into Git. and then you sync after you commit. I think that was my problem, is that the order of events was not complete. Anyway, so now I can change the model if I wanted to. And then I won't launch it, but if you're interested in seeing it, I created one before the demo. It takes a while to download the model to the VM and then deploy it. So so this is what it looks like, you know, right? About cloud, you know, the technologies. So I'll just say that it's this is running on a full GPU in Jetstream, so it's pretty fast. It can also do CPU. You could deploy it to CPU, but it's very, very slow. It's about, you know, 1 or 2 words every 3 seconds. So you can imagine this will take a while to generate. But anyway, so this is just for demo purposes. Obviously, you would probably want to scale it across multiple GPUs if you were hitting it for any production workloads. But that's what it deploys. And now, so after you sync the deployment, you could do that for the metadata. Just know that so one thing to keep in mind is CACAO will always deploy the most recent code. So even if it's, if it's not the metadata, CACAO, when you click on add deploy, let's say you make a change in the template itself, it will always grab from the most recent of that branch. So if I pushed another change to the webinar branch and it did something else, let's say maybe it installed some more packages, it would automatically receive and deploy those changes for new deployments. Well, you need sync only when you change the metadata, including things like the parameters. So I'll go ahead and delete that one. And so did I? Oh yeah, and the Docker one too. Okay. So the last thing I'll show is you can delete a template. So assuming you get the right ID, and I think I recorded it correctly. Let me see. Oh, so there's a Docker. So if this is an error, like if you still have resources running from that template, you won't be able to delete it. And so I still have it running. I won't go ahead, but that's the command you would need to delete. In any case, I will go ahead and go back to the presentation. So we have some plans for templates for CACAO. So obviously the command line is for more expert users or folks that are more comfortable with the command line. There will be an import interface for templates in the near future. Currently, templates can be private, meaning only available to you, which is by default when you publish, or you can make it visible so that's a public template. We are working on making that making templates so you can just share them within, by user or by group. As I mentioned before, we do have integration with AWS and Kubernetes providers, and that's not available yet on the UI, but those are going to be added soon. And then finally, enhancing a lot of the UI aspects of templates. So of the UI JSON, adding more fields for the UI JSON so that you can define things like secrets and being able to generate passwords through the UI. So we have many CyVerse curated templates. These are some of them that have already been developed and available on Jetstream2, but also some that are in development. And thank you for joining the webinar. Are there any questions? And I'll put it back on the templates so you can see.
There is one question, Edwin. how would you prevent someone from connecting to your fast chat web interface? That is, can you put a password on that?
Yes. So one is certainly with templates, you can add additional logic to, set up an Nginx server or put it in Kubernetes and front it with a ingress, and then use OAuth 2 if you wanted to, or put in, your own HTTP password. So we are working on providing a proxy and an interface in front of deployments so that if you wanted to, you could select that as an option. But for now, anything is really possible on templates, especially Terraform templates.
Okay. Are there any other questions? If you do have a question, feel free to unmute and ask. Otherwise, I will help us close out by just saying, oh, Neera's got another question. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
So my question is, Edwin, the recipe for password or authentication, can that be a common thing that can be added to all the other templates so that they can recipes so that they can, learn how to make the simple syrup and make whatever cocktail they want, but the simple syrup recipe is easy to include?
Yes. So the recipe is actually very simple. The reason why we don't put it in kind of by default, it has to do more with Let's Encrypt. So Let's Encrypt is the standard de facto free SSL certs for for most web services. I think a lot of people use them. We use them within CyVerse. The challenge is that there are limits on how much you can interact with Let's Encrypt. So there's limits on how many duplicate certificates, things like how many times for a single domain. So a single domain might be CyVerse.org. You can only request so many times, and then Let's Encrypt cuts you off. So if we get to a point where, like, if we were to make that available for SSL and say, hey, everyone could do it, especially with a resource like Jetstream where there's hundreds of users and maybe thousands of VMs come, spinning up and then spinning down kind of dynamically, we could hit upon that limit very easily. So if I were to put them into these templates, I know we would probably burn out Jetstream's 2 rate limits for Let's Encrypt easily. So one of the things we're working on is that you'll be able to use a kind of a shared URL. So you don't have to worry about Let's Encrypt or even authentication. It will automatically be set up if you want to. And then the other part is being able to not call Let's Encrypt for every single deployment, that we would also allow people who deploy resources through CACAO to save those certificates for future deployments. So, but the authentication piece is easy.
So Edwin, could you imagine like a proxy server that has authentication,
yes,
and then has a group management that's already built into, let's say, one of the CyVerse products like DE, and then you go and choose a group and say, here's my group, and anything that I launch in CACAO, route it through, like, the web interface has to go through this proxy. So you're not running HTTPS on the instance itself, but your proxy is handling everything, and you've only gotten that certificate once.
Yep, that's exactly what we're working on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, great. Well, everyone, please be sure to mark your calendars for the December 1 webinar on the data-rich world of Earth and environmental science with Dr. Lizarraga. And thank you for attending today. See you in a couple weeks, and happy holidays.
Thank you, Edwin.
Bye.